I'm a scientist, so I think very analytically. In Sharia law, it says that a crime will be punished differently as a function of the identity of the perpetrator and the victim. So if a Jewish man were to kill a Muslim man, it wouldn't be the same penalty as if it were reversed. I can give you all of the sources that support that Sharia rule.
One thing a lot of liberals don't understand about Islam is that it's not just a religion and a faith, but also very often a system of governance. You don't see too much around the world proper separation of mosque and state, like the separation of church and state, which is much talked about. And this has serious repercussions for the possibility of integrating certain people into your society. Take a look at this debate in which Professor Saad explains to the audience and to his co-panelists a thing or two about Sharia law and how incompatible that is and its ideology with Western societies like Canada and the United States. Take a look.
You said it was disgusting to question whether or not a given faith was compatible with the Western values or British culture. And you said there's quite a different context in America to what it is here regarding the grooming gangs. I don't know if you know, and I'd be interested to hear your response to this, see if it changes your mind. In the UK, Pakistani men are overrepresented by a share of 4 in child sex crimes. And when the children who have been abused by these gangs come forward and speak about it, they say they've been branded with the M for Muhammad on themselves, they've been subjected to forced Quran readings, and the families of the rapists have justified the abuse of the girls because they have said they dress immodestly by Muslim standards. And when they ask the police officers, the council workers, the politicians why they didn't speak up for this, in all of the reports, they say for political correctness, for community cohesion, because they didn't want to upset the Muslim community. Now, as well as the security of Jews, which you mentioned, according to the Henry Jackson Society last year, only a quarter of British Muslims think October the 7th happened. Like 3/4 of them think Hamas did nothing wrong, and that's mainly concentrated among university-educated British-born Muslims 18 to 30. So I think we have a very different problem in the UK than we do in the US. So do you still think it's not possible to say Islam is not compatible with Britain?
Okay. Okay. I want to take questions in groups of 3, and to give them a chance to think about this.
No,
and
I want to answer that.
Oh, do you want to answer that right away?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. All right. Go.
Like, I'm sorry, those are your citizens. Citizenship is the only human right that every person has a right to. When you have citizens of your country, I'm not arguing that you don't have a cultural problem here in a certain subset of the citizenry of your country. But a country is made up of the people who live there who have that legal right. You need to work a lot harder on changing hearts and minds, because you cannot simply say that a certain citizen of your country is not compatible. And by the way, we have statistics like that in America. There are certain subpopulations who are much more overrepresented in child sex crimes. It would never occur to me to suggest that they are less citizens. Like, citizenship is a sacred thing. What are you suggesting, that they be denaturalized? Like, that is insane. That is utter. You do not have a democracy if you think you can denaturalize people based on their ideas.
I'm a scientist, so I think very analytically, okay? So take, for example, Sharia law, right? In Sharia law, it says that a crime will be punished differently as a function of the identity of the perpetrator and the victim. So if a Jewish man were to kill a Muslim man, it wouldn't be the same penalty as if it were reversed. I can give you all of the sources that support that Sharia ruling.
God, I have some bad news for you about the Talmud. Sorry.
But I'll ignore that for a second. So that said, you take a fundamental principle from Lady Justice being blind. where you don't do that in American jurisprudence. Those two realities are antithetical to each other. I'm not aware of too many Talmudic extremists who are trying to...
Well, exactly. It's a political problem. It's not a religious problem. That's my point.
90% of Islam is political Islam. About 10% of it is spiritual. So political Islam is a fundamental feature of Islam. There is no Islamism or Islam. There's just Islam. Erdogan, the Turkish president, has said so. 75,000 other Islamic clerics have said exactly the same thing. So we don't have many people who are trying to infuse Talmudic principles within American jurisprudence. We are seeing in the West an incursion of Sharia principles that is incompatible. So I don't think Muslims are incompatible with the West, because I may have a lot more in common with a Muslim secularist than I might have with an Orthodox Jew. So to say Muslims are not allowed in the West, I would completely disagree with. But are there tenets of Islam, to your point, that are perfectly incompatible with the West? Nothing could be clearer. A 3-day-old pigeon understands that.
Okay. We'll go here and then there at the end. Go ahead. Yeah.
We're in England, and I'm not an Englishman. I'm here as a guest in this country, and as a part of a guest community in this country, we have to behave ourselves. If I had guests in my house, I'd expect them to behave themselves, and if they didn't, and they started doing all sorts of awful things to my sister, for example, they'd be kicked out of the house. We need to understand that citizenship is not actually that important. What's more important than citizenship is inheritance. And the English have inherited this land. This is their land. We're here not as a right, we're here at their preference. And if a community doesn't understand that, they've got no right to be here at all.
I think that's one of the saddest things I've ever heard, and I'm going to be haunted by the spectacle of you standing there and saying that. If someone in my country said that, I would ask myself what I'm doing wrong. I mean, the idea that a citizen would call themselves a guest based on their religion is horrific to me. The whole point of my country is that that is completely anathema. If somebody made a Jew feel that way in my country, I don't even know what I would do to them. I will be haunted by that for a long time.
I will be haunted. The problem is that's not really what he said. What he said is essentially you have a set of values in the country, and if you don't abide by those set of values, if you don't believe in those set of values, then really you shouldn't be there. And this is what people are trying to say again and again, and they get shut down as being called bigots and racists and things like that. And particularly on this issue of citizenship, it's been proven at this point, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and that's why all these far-right parties, as they call them, have been rising across Europe, that states actually have identities, right? So a state, when you say it's citizenship, you're a citizen, then you treat a state like an airport terminal. There's all kinds of people of all backgrounds, all places, milling around, incoming flights, outgoing flights, going to their next destination, or whatever it is. Just a bunch of people, doesn't matter from where, what faith, what religion, what background, what language, nothing. The only thing that matters is they have a flight ticket and they're in the airport. The only thing that matters is you're a citizen and that's it. But a state can't function on that. A state is built by a shared sense of identity, of destiny, by understanding the basic rules that govern a society, particularly a democratic society. And once you start infusing that very fragile society, country, state, with people who are incompatible with that, then you have a serious problem. Of course, there's a problem in saying, well, if you're a Muslim, then you're incompatible, right? Then you're not, like the guy said, you're acting like a rude guest or something. Not necessarily, of course, but in some cases, when you had people like in Britain, like Anjem Choudhury, who was going around advocating for Sharia law, which we just talked about how terrible a thing that is, then it's kind of like a problem. It's okay, you're a citizen technically, right? Because he's a Pakistani Brit or whatever it is. He's a citizen, but he's going around basically saying Islam should run this country. At which point, well, yeah, there's a question of what do you do with such a person? True, anyone who's a citizen then your options are limited what you can do about it. But before getting into that specific, the question is if the principle of you don't share the most basic core values of the country you're in, you despise the country you're in, then there should be a question mark of like, are you welcome there? Are you welcome? If you go to America and you say, I hate America, America is the worst country on earth, the American intervention causes all the problems in the world, and I'm advocating to tear America down, is that person welcome in America or in Britain if he said something like that? I would think probably not so much. And Islam as an idea, as an ideology, as God Saad said, and he always talks about Islam and Muslims and the difference. And I agree with a lot of that, is that like Muslims are individual people. Islam has different ideas. I think a lot of them are fine from what I've seen personally, some of them, but a large segment of it is an idea that is completely undemocratic. It's this idea of Islam dominating its surroundings, the public spaces, and ultimately the religion of the people. The goal is that everyone in the end will be Muslim and follow Muhammad, and they're looking for that domination. That is a very, very common tenet in Islam as an ideology, as a political ideology. As he said, 90% political, 10% spiritual. I don't know if that's true, but the first thing is to understand that there is a very widespread attempt to implement Islam as an ideology and as a way of governing the society, and not just as a personal faith, in which case it becomes not so compatible with Western democratic societies, as was proven there in the debate. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.